Every single team across the NFL has opened up their training camp, and that has led to a number of storylines that we're going to break down for you here today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Joseph, hello. And it's good to see you from your regular recruiting accommodations.
Yeah. You are not. Yeah, you're in Miami Gardens. Is that right?
Technically Aventura, but yeah, I will be in Miami Gardens for camp in about 3 hours.
I think that's the thing that people don't realize about South Florida and the Miami area. How many different, I don't know what they are, neighborhoods, towns, villages, whatever it is. There's 1,000 different places around Miami. Right. And very few of the places are actually Miami. You think you're in Miami, you're not in Miami. And if you say you're in Miami and you're not in Miami, the locals will let you know that you're not in Miami.
Right. They'll tell you you're in Miami Lakes or Miami Gardens or
all places I've been thinking I was in Miami, and I wasn't.
Hollywood Beach, or Danny Beach. There's the Sunrise where the Florida Panthers play. Hopefully Bill Simmons can figure out where the Panthers play. I don't know. He had a hard time with that. Had a hard time as a Boston guy getting knocked out by the Panthers a couple years in a row. And that was his trash talk. You don't even know where you play. They play in Sunrise, Bill. Mystery.
That's a Bill problem. It's a Bill problem. The information's available, my guy. You could learn this. You could learn it. Speaking of learn, we've learned a lot about the NFL now that every single team has reported for training camp. And these are the moments where, because you're at camp, it's kind of a deadline in some ways. And so you get a lot of different news. And so whether it's extensions, whether it's holdouts, odds and ends type stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of things that we can get into, Kyle, but I think the lead story coming out of the opening of training camp is this contract extension for Minnesota Vikings left tackle Christian Darrisaw, 4-year extension worth up to $113 million. And what's fascinating about that is this is early extension, right? This is his 4th season. He's got the 5th-year option, and now there's 4 additional seasons tacked on top of that. I think there's a lot to unpack with Christian Darrisaw, who I thought was a really underrated prospect. I remember, do you remember me gushing about him during that season? Yeah. I'm like, man, this guy can play. And then it was a pretty good offensive line class, and the Vikings were able to move back. They were able to move back from 14 to 23. They pick up 2 extra third-round picks. Now, let's not talk about what they did with those. That didn't work out great. Wyatt Davis and Kellen Mond. But
process versus results, right?
Process versus results. To be able to move back and get a premier tackle in Darrisaw in a stretch of the draft where there's quite a few black eyes. If you go back and look at that 21 draft in that stretch, feels like they manipulated that first round quite well.
So if I remember correctly, there was an injury question with Darrisaw, right?
I think maybe
contributed to his slide a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you had to put him on, and we did this vaguely when we did our top 100, but if you put Christian Darrisaw in the hierarchy of NFL left tackles right now, the number, at a bare minimum, he's one of the guys on one hand that you can count, right? As far as the best tackles in the room. So to have a 6-year window of control as far as the 2 final years on his rookie contract and these new 4 years, and spacing that money in total out across those 6 seasons, this is going to be really economically friendly situation for Minnesota with Darrisaw too. So it's not just the level of the player. It's not just the contract. It's the blend of, because you got the contract extension done so early, this is one of those times, and it's not always the case. There's a lot of times where it doesn't behoove you to do a contract extension with 2 years of player control left on a player. A lot of times that's a wide receiver who wants to get a pay raise and they're 28 years old, right? Like that's the window where you do it with 2 years, and it's like, oh, okay, like, are you going to make our team this year? Are we going to trade you? Totally different ballgame to do it off a rookie contract. And then for Minnesota to lock that in, I think is one of those examples of why it is so beneficial to be proactive and get these extensions done sooner rather than later.
We'll give some love to the 2021 offensive line class. This draft produced the likes of Penei Sewell, Christian Darrisaw, Evan Jenkins, Sam Cosmi, Spencer Brown, Trey Smith, Landon Dickerson, Creed Humphrey, Quinn Miners, Josh Myers, Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker. Folks, the NFL offensive line landscape was redefined by the 2021 NFL draft. Like, that was good starter after good starter, and that's the guys that were taken throughout the entire draft.
You're rubbing a lot of salt in the wound of.
I didn't listen. I noticed that along the way.
That's payback for the Stephon Diggs contract extension thing that was just happened just before that with a 2 years of control and doing a new contract extension. So I guess we're even already.
Oh man, that was a heck of a class, man. Heck of an offensive line class.
Be shame come out of that trading a 3 to move up 10 spots and get Lee Meikenberg. It'd be a shame.
That was an unintended consequence of this conversation. Tyson Campbell got the bag with the Jacksonville Jaguars, 4-year, $76.5 million extension. The way that you know that the agents had a lot of play in here wasn't part of the reporting here from the insiders that this is like the highest contract ever given to a non-Pro Bowl cornerback. Have you ever seen phrasing like that in an announcement? That was definitely intentional.
It's like, how many layers do we need to put on a data point to have the data fit exactly what our agenda is, right? And that's kind of like what just happened with that, where Tyson Campbell didn't have his best season last year. I think he's a strong bounce back candidate. He was really good in 2022. And you're proactively getting this deal in front of Surtain and Sauce Gardner, because the corner market hasn't reset since Jair Alexander. I know Antoine Winfield just reset it as a safety this year, right? But Jair at 21, that ceiling is going to move when Sauce Gardner gets contract extension, and that ceiling is going to move when Pat Surtain gets a contract extension. So to get this done in front of it and keep it under what that prior 3 years worth of ceiling is for the top of that market, I think is where the big win is for Jacksonville in that contract extension.
You and I are both fans of Coach Alexander, Cody Alexander on X at _coach_A. Definitely. I mean, you want to learn about defense and zone principles. Like you will learn a lot from Cody Alexander. He's been on both of our respective podcasts, Bills and Dolphins. He is not super high on this deal. In fact, he came out and shared that he has him ranked as the 54th best corner in the NFL entering this season. And he went on to say that Campbell is a pure zone corner who's going to have a DC and Ryan Nielsen looking to run cover one and man match concepts in his split field package. He was 195th in man coverage. So to shell out this contract to a cornerback that struggled in man is interesting. I like Ryan Nielsen. I do. I think this is a reasonable talking point to introduce.
Yeah.
I certainly think that Tyson Campbell as a draft pick that fits all of the traits buckets that Trent Baalke likes. Like, I definitely understand all of those dynamics, but I think it's fair to point out that the scheme adjustment is notable. And is this the right way for them to utilize Tyson Campbell. But I think the onus then comes back on Ryan Nielsen to use his players the way that they're the most successful.
Right. If you're to play match, there is a corner, a perimeter corner that kind of gets locked in, and a lot of times is, you can play physical, you can play hands-on, and he's yours if he's outside and deep. He's yours everywhere he goes, but let him play physical. And the nice thing about that corner is your leverage, that's the passing strength corner, and you've got the nickel that's over there to kind of build structure with you, or if he goes shallow and under, you don't have to have super elite transitional quickness to trigger. That then you get back into a zone principle to find whoever's coming to that area with smash technique or something else. So it's going to behoove everybody to make it work, right? Because you have a new defensive coordinator trying to ignite that defensive personnel group, and you just paid a guy $19 million a season. So yeah, let's figure out the best position to put him in, and let's make sure he stays there.
Shout out to Julian Love getting a 3-year contract extension with Seattle worth up to $36 million. But there are a lot of other things we want to get into today, including several players that are holding out, one that's holding in, some big high-profile names. We're going to get into all of that here for you on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. Folks, it's here, the NFL season. I know you want to get to some of these games. If you do, then you got to download the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is incredible. I love it. It's easy to navigate. Plus, they give you flash deals. They give you last-minute ticket specials. They give you a seat image so you know exactly what to expect when you get to the venue. They give you their best price guarantee and all-in prices. They will give you the full price from the outset of the purchase. That way you're not hit with any surprise processing fees at the end. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Kyle, the Game Time app had great prices for me to attend the Creed concert last night here in Charlotte, but I couldn't find anybody that wanted to go with me. Can you believe that?
I would have gone.
I wish you were here because we could have.
I would have put off another day camp to go to Creed.
Little pit stop halfway, Can
you take me?
There it is. Man, what a night it could have been, Kyle. Nobody wanted to go. I even asked my mother-in-law. I was like, hey, you want to go? She said no.
That's all right. The one thing I know about Carolina is Dave Tepper is a lot of music there, so I'm sure they'll be back anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Did you see they have, what is it, like a cryo?
It's tough. It's tough scene.
Locker room, like a chill box with metal bleachers. Like what?
I'm pretty sure it's like a trailer that was brought in. It looks like something that was, sitting in a elementary school for the last 20 years. Rolled it in.
A lot of money.
Little cool off zone there for the players. Brother, I can't.
Set to 20 degrees.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
A chill box.
Yeah.
They brought in a chill box. It's interesting. They said they wasn't their idea though. So it's like sports science wise, it came from somebody else.
Surely. Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah, we got some holdouts, Kyle.
Got a lot of holdouts and a lot of hold-ins.
Yeah. So can we start with Haason Reddick and the Jets?
I think we have to, from a magnitude of complexity for how complicated this is. This is the one you have to start with because they made him a contract offer when they traded for him. And he said no. And then they apparently agreed for him to get the compensation that he wanted. The Jets wanted to play it out for a year, and everybody was cool with that. And then they traded for him, and then Haason changed his mind and said, I'm not cool with that. I want a new contract. And, I mean, his asking price is like double what he's getting paid in cash right now.
Which I think there's a case. He's got a case for that.
He's got a very legitimate argument for the asking price that he's asking for. It's not like it's an unreasonable ask relative to his production the last 4 or 5 seasons. But you're the Jets. Where do you go from here?
I mean, there's a piece of me that has some grace for the Jets if Haason Reddick really did like say one thing and then did another. Like, that's just not cool, right? Like, I think any good relationship is based on honesty and trust. And if you say, hey, this is going to work out this way, and you got to stick with that. So I have a lot of grace for the Jets, but it's like, how much grace can I extend back to the Jets when it feels like there's just a long line of just bad business with how that team's handled a lot of things over the years under this regime. And so it's hard to look at this situation in its entirety and feel like, you know what? The Jets got a raw deal. It's like, I don't know, maybe this is just the next thing in line of your goofy business dealings.
Well, and I think the reality of it too is this is why if you're going to acquire a player in a contract year and they want a new contract, you should probably have it done and not say, well, we'll play out this year. Like, they have a 3rd-round pick. And now you're talking about giving up a 3rd-round pick to pay a guy potentially $8+ million more than you could have just kept Bryce Huff at Bryce Huff's asking point. And their thought process was, we'll pay less for Haason Reddick. And that makes sense unless Haason Reddick decides he doesn't think that's a very attractive arrangement for him, and he's right to think that. But I wouldn't do the handshake stuff, because the handshake stuff is easy enough to change your mind on, that something like this could happen.
Yeah, I mean, Reddick could have understood the Jets' mindset and say, "Whoa, I'm the pawn here. I'm the better player, man. I've done more.
Right.
I've done more. Like, you guys traded for me. Like, I can understand the exception that he would take with it, but it feels sour from the outset, and it's not a good start to this relationship. And Haason Reddick's a stud, and he's getting paid $15 million per, and that's at least $10 million too low based on what he's shown us over the last 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Not the only player that has something going on. I guess we have a Cowboys conversation and then a 49ers conversation to get to, where we know that Dallas has some big contracts to deal with. Dak Prescott, which we talked about on Monday this week. Micah Parsons, he's there. And then Ceedee Lamb, who's holding out of training camp right now. It's fines of $40,000 per day. As Ceedee Lamb, who's been as productive as any receiver in the NFL over the last couple of seasons, sat there and watched everybody. Not everybody.
Everybody but Jamar Chase.
Yeah, everybody but Jamar Chase. I guess T. Higgins, Brandon Aiyuk hasn't been taken care of yet, but a lot of guys got paid. And if I'm Ceedee Lamb, I'm like, yo, guys, what more? What more? We didn't even have any players around me last year, dude, and I went out and had like a bazillion yards. He's got every case in the world, and I don't understand why Dallas doesn't take care of players like this quicker. But right now, that's a sticky situation that it sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a stare down here and see who's going to blink first.
I just feel like Dallas has a lot of moving parts. San Francisco, to be fair, has a lot of moving parts as well, where they have Aiyuk holding in, they have Trent Williams holding out. You have the Brock Purdy extension looming as kind of the black cloud on the horizon. For a team that spent some of this offseason kind of already going around trying to negotiate pay cuts with guys.
Yeah, it wasn't
how aggressive.
Wasn't Juszczyk asked about that? He's like, I didn't really expect this.
There's been a couple of guys that were, at least it was asked about. I move on from Eric Armstead. Kind of a constant juggling act with them. You know what Trent Williams the last 2 years has made in cash, the last 2 years combined? Are you aware what the number is?
I don't know.
We'll venture a guess the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023 for Trent Williams.
40 million.
You're off by about 12.
So is it 52 or is it
28?
Yeah.
And he's due to make less than 21 this year. So you're looking at 3 years of Trent Williams getting collectively. I'm going to dare to do the math. It's like $48 million in 3 years. The last 2 years and this year is what's scheduled for Trent. So you consider what the tackle market has done with what we just saw with Darrisaw, what we saw with Penei Sewell. I'd be a little mad if I were Trent Williams too.
His contract kind of sucks. I'm looking over it right now. Only 29% of this contract is guaranteed. Like, that's half of potentially what it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's at that point where it's like, all right, this is not adding up. But it's also like, I mean, Trent Williams is awesome. What is he, 36?
So I think the way you appease this, I think for Trent, at a minimum, is you take some of this all non-guaranteed $32 million, $33 million he's scheduled for in 2026, which is the current last year of his contract. You probably need to redistribute some of that and move that up.
Get him to like a 30 million APY or something like that.
I mean, even if you just say, look, for this year, let's figure it out. We're going to bump cash that you're owed 2 years from now and put it into this year's salary for you and boost your cash flow this year. And then we can figure out long term. That's what my first move if I was San Francisco would be, just because he already has more than $10 million per season prorated out from past restructures. You mentioned the age dynamic with him where he just turned 36 earlier this month. He's still playing at a super high level, but it's like, you have 3 years left on your deal. Do we tear the whole thing up? How do we handle the remaining years of the deal? How long are you going to play? It just gets really messy when you're a 36-year-old tackle, So my hope would be, if I'm San Francisco, I could just pull from 2026 cash that you're owed, put it into this year, get you to a place where you're happy, and then let's sit down and talk about it with 2 years left on your deal next offseason when you're getting ready to turn 37.
John Lynch has his work cut out for him in San Francisco, like the best, worst problems to have between some high-profile guys wanting new deals. You got like Javarius Ward on an expiring contract. You got to figure out Purdy. You got a lot of levers to pull. You're tight on cap. Like, just figure it out. It's all right there, but it's about prioritizing. Meanwhile, you got a team that's absolutely built to win the Super Bowl this year. Mm-hmm. So that's why they get paid the big bucks, John Lynch. We'll see what you got here. Excited to see it all play out. Also excited to dive into some of the odds and ends from across the NFL, including some discussion about an 18-game regular season. Kyle and I are going to break that down for you here on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fits only available to U.S. customers.
Tell you what, Joe, the worst thing about traveling is how your body requires like a allergy adjustment period. I'm battling some demons down here, and you're getting ready to battle some demons this weekend.
So, yes, I am. You're in a really unique spot going from the mid-Atlantic, is that what you call this, where you live in, down to South Florida. So what happens for me is when I go from Charlotte to Buffalo, there's not as much humidity or moisture in the air. So my skin and my lips get so dry. Dude, I'm like, me and my mom, we were there like last year, like, what? I'm like, Mom, my lips are killing me. She's like, dude, me too. Like, she thought what was wrong with her. It's there's no humidity, no moisture, so everything's drying up. I got to bring my lotion and my chapstick.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, was that the rant? I mean, that's what you thought you were going to get there.
No, it's not at all what I thought I was going to get, but you delivered, so that's what's important. So, do you pack or do you buy when you get there? That's a whole other.
Imagine me having the foresight ever to anticipate these things. So now that you've brought this up, I think I will make sure that I'm equipped, because every time I'm like, oh my God, 3 days into it, I got to get stuff. I'm going to prepare.
And then what size do you buy? Do you bring it home, or do you just buy the travel size and try to survive for however long you're there?
I mean, have you ever saw through an entire stick of chapstick in your life? I lose that thing within a couple days.
I don't use chapstick, so I would rather have chapped lips than, I don't know. It's a feel thing for me.
This is an all-time bad take. You would rather have chapstick? You would rather have chapped lips?
I would do anything to not put chapstick on my lips because it feels like greasy.
Dude, I hate it too, but I don't want to have my lips chapped.
Dirty. It's not for me. It's just not for me. I'm gonna let you like it if you like chapstick.
I don't like it. I just
I'm not gonna wear it. I'm not gonna wear it. I will sit here and do this the whole time.
You're ridiculous.
Try to limit my exposure to the elements instead of putting chapstick on.
All right. Let's get into some odds and ends. I think the most interesting thing, and anytime that we see a little bit of smoke with stuff like this, it's only a matter of time. Hearing some discussions about the NFL and the NFLPA discussing an 18-game regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. This is where I think the players come back with a lot of demands. Say, all right, we'll give you an 18th game. That's cool. We want X, Y, and Z, and that'll infect your offseason. Second bye week is like a bare minimum type thing. There's potentially some big adjustments that are coming here, and I feel like anytime there's been a little bit of smoke, the NFL going to LA, the NFL having 17-game seasons, playing in certain international destinations, right? Like you just know it's only a matter of time. So my mindset is it's only a matter of time, but I'm also most interested in what the demands the players make to get this 18th game and how accommodating are the owners, which I think they should be very accommodating. I think there's a good result here. There's a good way to get to what everybody wants. But that process is always very interesting.
Dude, the length of the list that the players should have for this of things to ask for. You're talking what? More expanded rosters?
2 weeks of the preseason, right? 2 week preseason or no preseason, something like that. Yeah.
Extra bye week.
Something will change with the offseason structure. Remember, this was already a thing where they talked about changing the dates, and then all the coaches and executives are like, well, this is the very consistent things in our lives. This is when we plan to do things with our fans.
Yep.
So there's going to be some push there. Yeah.
I don't think they would get longer. Weren't they talking about doing, as a part of that, doing away with some of the OTAs and mini camps and just doing a longer training camp at the start and like having more of a definitive time off?
Don't you get so nervous about that, like ramp up and injuries and stuff like that?
I don't know that they would get that. But then there's also things like expanded rosters, and I don't know, you have to have this balancing act of that asks for the 95% of players that aren't going to get 3 contracts and make high 10 figures, right?
Those are always the forgotten players, right?
Right. That's the vast majority of the league is the players who are trying to get their 3 years of tenure to get healthcare and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there will be more stuff with that. I mean, we already got the expanded practice squads, and we got, the kind of the changes to how those players, what your eligibility can be to be on the practice squad. I'm sure you'll get more stuff like that. You ask for the moon and back, and you don't settle for less, especially if they're going to sit here and say, this might get done before you have to do a new CBA.
Yeah.
That was the big thing for me that says, okay, like we're serious. They're really going to put a lot of time and investment into trying to figure out how to make this work. If they're already saying this might get done before we need to do a new collective bargaining agreement, which happens every 10 years, and you sit here and you laugh at that and say, is this your counterbalance to the Sunday ticket lawsuit? Because you're going to need to, everybody's going to need to find some more liquid cash. If that bill comes due when they go through the appeals process, they don't win their appeals.
Yeah, I was going to prompt you to talk about that Sunday ticket stuff, and you got there. And I mean, say what you want about these owners. They're billionaires, and they didn't become billionaires because they spent all their money, right? They don't just hand out $400 million or whatever they're going to have to do, right? They find ways to get that money. And it feels like maybe there's a piece of this as owners see everything going up with contracts and potentially having to shelve out this Sunday ticket lawsuit. Well, how do we get money? Play another game, right? Play another game. It's
got another ticket sales, parket, merchandise,
all of it,
television broadcasts, gambling.
Yeah, relevance. I mean, just how do you make a what is currently a 17-game regular season relevant longer? Well, all right. Here's how you do it. And the NFL has been masterful at making their product a 365-day-a-year conversation. That's why we can do a podcast like this every single day, all year long, because it never really stops. Right. And so I think it's only a matter of time here. It's just a matter of what the demands are and how quickly they can come to an agreement.
And do we agree we stop at 18 though?
Please, God. Yeah, like that's enough.
Yeah. The quality, you're worried about the quality of the product. I want as much football as I can get, but like,
right.
You start worried about the quality of the product if you guys go too crazy here. Let's not ruin a good thing.
Yeah, but I really do like the second bye week. I almost think there should be one now. And in that way, there's like some balance here. Like there's a lot of data that supports like the timing of your one bye week and where teams have been successful and not successful. Like, it'd be nice to know that everyone's going to get a bye week within the first 9 weeks of the season, and everyone's going to get one within the second 9 weeks of the season. And you know, I know that these are creatures of habit, but I think that'd be a win for everybody. Like, I don't know what the downside is to that, other than you're like, oh, your calendar typically has the season ending on this date. Well, everybody wants it to end on President's Day anyways, so that the Super Bowl's a 3-day weekend. Like, it feels like an easy win for everybody there.
I would be inclined to agree.
The Browns and Rams were able to avoid holdouts with Matthew Stafford and Amari Cooper being able to get contracts adjusted, which feels like a good idea for both of those teams to make sure that those guys are in the building, happy, practicing, and you at least appease whatever their contract hold off is at this point.
So, and Amari Cooper is the interesting one for me. They guaranteed his salary for this season, and they gave him like a $5 million raise, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would have been very easy to do a whole new contract, or kind of some of the same parallels we talked about with Trent Williams, but they didn't have like the end years to pull new cash into. He gets the PR win of, well, we guaranteed your salary when I didn't have guaranteed salary. So I guess there's some peace of mind there from his perspective. He's got to get a little bit more stability for this season. But yeah, and the Stafford one too Stafford was kind of the Trent Williams version of quarterback play when you look at what he was getting paid versus the quarterback market as a whole and cash flow. And I think both of those were necessary for those guys. They had a right to feel the way that they felt and to know that they check that box before you get it into the start of camp is good.
I'm glad that you broke that all down, because I am mesmerized by this Jaguars helmet. Did you see it real quick?
No.
Check the chat, brother. Check the chat. This is where we got to end.
I knew the shell white.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, I'm watching the 30-second intro video. I know they said they were doing something else after the throwbacks.
Just check the chat in our in-studio chat.
I want to watch the video revealing the helmet. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
This is beautiful. The matte white with the black face mask, the Jaguars logo pops.
It's just a little. Their logo, I don't know that their logo looks as good on white as it does on black.
But as an alternate helmet,
yeah, it's good.
This thing is nice.
Good. It's a nice final thing for us to wrap with, because I'm sure some Jacksonville fan will get upset that I said that it was okay for an alternative helmet. So, tip of the cap to Jacksonville. You guys are getting spoiled with a bunch of good, fun stuff with your uniforms. And tip of the cap to everybody who checked out today's episode of Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are out of here for today. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. And we'll be back to talk to you all again tomorrow.